What's going on, everybody? My name is High Five Bars, and welcome to another Monster Hunter Rise video. In this video, we are going to be covering something that I think is very important. It's one of the most crucial pieces of a hunter's equipment, and that is their hunter notes. Now, what are the hunter notes? Well, basically, this is information on the monsters which you will be fighting a lot. Things like weaknesses, ailment status, effects that work or don't work so well on them, as well as the drops that they will be giving you along the way and the percentage chance that you will receive them. It's pretty important. It's something that you're going to need along your way as you're playing Monster Hunter Rise, and honestly, this one seemed a little extra confusing. I've seen quite a few of them over the years. I've played Monster Hunter since Monster Hunter Freedom on the PSP. And this one seemed more confusing than it necessarily needed to be. I was confused, and so I thought that it would be a good idea to come on and explain how exactly it works, what exactly the stuff means, and that way you have a better understanding of what you're going to need to do to succeed in your hunt. So without further ado, let's get to it. Now, first and foremost, in order to be able to actually access your hunter notes, you will need to go into your start menu by hitting the plus sign on your Switch controller. You will need to go over to and down into hunter notes. Now here you can see a whole bunch of different things. The main thing we're going to be focusing on today is the large monsters, the information on the monster that you will need to try and succeed in the game. So here you can see I have brought up the Rathian, a well-known monster from the series. It's been in basically every entry that I can possibly think of, and it's yet another monster that you will encounter time and time again throughout the course of the game. As you can see here on the ecology page, we have, of course, a small blurb about its characteristics, talking about that it's a fire-dragging female wyvern, things like that. It's the queen of the land, as they say. The other things that you can see here are such things as its habitats. You can see that it can be found in shrine ruins, the sandy plains, flooded forest, and the lava caverns. Another thing to take note is it shows its threat level, which it's a 4-star out of 10. It is a flying wyvern. We have hunted 4 and captured 1, and our longest one was 1842, and our shortest was 1736. These are all stats that are recorded on this page for your records. Now here's where we start to get into information which will definitely impact you on your hunts against things such as the Rathian. In this case, we are talking about its physiology, which is essentially how different weapons, different weapon types, and different elements will impact the monster that you are fighting. Now, as you can see here, we have a lot of different information to take in on this page. Things like damage type, where you have slash damage with the sword icon, the blunt damage with the hammer icon, the pierce damage with the ammo icon, and then more traditional things such as fire, water, thunder or lightning, ice, and dragon. Then you've got different body parts such as head, neck, back, torso, wings, legs, and tail, and a whole lot of numbers to go along with it. Basically, a sword, which uses slashing damage, would do essentially a damage value of 70 to the head, while a hammer, which deals blunt damage, would have a damage value of 75 to the head, and finally ammo, or piercing damage, would be roughly 65 for a damage value to the head. Moving on from there, you can see the different damage types for elements, the strongest of which is Dragon, which has a 30 damage value to the head. It is actually the highest for any of the elemental damage to the Rathian. So essentially it's equivalent to a 3-star weakness to Dragon, which it had in World, for instance. Then you have a 2-star weakness to Lightning, and then finally a 1-star weakness to Water and Ice with Fire immunity. As you can see here, it has a 0 across the board because it's immune to fire, which makes sense for a Rathian. Moving on from the Physiology, we have the Ailments tab. Now this one essentially details different information on different status effects that you can use against the monster. In this case, we are still talking about the Rathian. First and foremost, you can see here that it talks about poison, stun, paralysis, sleep, blast, exhaust, fire blight, water blight, thunder blight, ice blight. And each one is going to have their own weakness to it, as well as, these different charts that you'll see here, and we will explain momentarily. First, we should talk about what each one of these means. You can see here that we have initial resistance, next resistance, threshold, maximum resistance, natural buildup, degradation, and total damage. What that essentially means is the initial resistance, the lower this bar is, which in this one there is no bar, the more resistant it is to that ailment. As Rathian is immune to poison, there is complete resistance. So there is no initial resistance, there is no next resistance, there's no maximum resistance because it is immune. But if we go to something like stun, you can see here that the initial resistance is very low. It's got about 75% weakness to stun for the first go around. And then from there, after you stun it the first time, the second time it will be lower. It'll be harder essentially to stun it, as it has 50% weakness instead of 75. Then finally, after you have stunned it twice, the third time and beyond, it has 25% weakness, which means that it will take a lot more to stun it than it had previously done. And you'll see that this is different for each status ailment, and just go through, take a look at each one, but knowing the main details about this chart and how to read it will really help you along the way. Now finally we have the fun part, which is talking about drops. Of course, each monster has a certain drop that we're looking for. There's going to be certain percentages to those drops that each one will have for us. Here we can see, we'll use the Rathian Spike as an example. Now, the Rathian Spike in target rewards has a 7% chance of dropping. Now what that means is it has a 7% chance to show up in your rewards post-hunt. From there, you can see that capturing it has no percentage. You will not get one as a capture reward for capturing a Rathian. After that, we've got the broken part rewards. If you're breaking parts off, such as breaking the head, the wings, the chest, maybe cutting the tail off, things like that, you can get broken part rewards, and there is a 70% chance of receiving that as a drop for breaking things off. Then we have a 40% chance of receiving a Rathian Spike from carving the monster after you have moited it. And finally, there is a dropped materials, which is a 4% chance from things like causing it to fight other monsters when you're doing wyvern riding or otherwise, or turf wars, for instance. You can also see that there's a brief description of each item, in this case the Rathian Spike, for instance, and it also breaks down this information over on the left-hand side as well in a kind of a different format. So that concludes this informational video on Monster Hunter Rise and the Hunter's Notes detailing monster information such as ailments, elemental resistances, and their drops. If you found this content useful, give it a like, subscribe down below. I will be posting more gameplay-centric videos as we go. If you want to check me out live, you can hop over to twitch.tv/high5pars and come hang out with us. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, my name is High5Pars saying, stay safe, but not too safe, and I will catch you all later. Bye-bye, everyone.